Good evening.
Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Hope everyone is having a great Sunday. We sure are. We kicked off the day, I guess, by having a little bit of coffee this morning and getting some work done. Did a little bit of grocery shopping and then came home and chilled a little bit. I don't know how many of you have watched Michael Jordan's The Last Dance documentary that is going on. So we've been watching those new episodes. So that's been interesting because I've been a Michael Jordan fan all my life. So enjoyed that. And yesterday we had Nihal, who is a triathlete, talk to us about his training and what it's like to be a triathlete in India. And he also spoke a little bit about his nutrition and how food plays an integral part into his training also. And right now he's actually going through Ramadan, so he's fasting, and his whole relationship with food has also changed a little bit, and he has had to make some adjustments. And so if you didn't get a chance to listen in yesterday, you can definitely go and check out that talk with Nihal on our YouTube channel. But today we have a very exciting guest all the way from the US. And Amit, if you can introduce her.
Yeah. So we're joined by Maria this morning. I'm sure a lot of you know her. It's really interesting because everyone that we've had on the show so far, they've been either runners, trail runners, triathletes. I'm trying to think, anyone else?
No, mostly runners.
Mostly runners and triathletes. But now we have a trail runner, an elite trail runner, but also a registered dietitian. So someone who knows a lot about food, someone who loves food and who loves running. Here is a little bit of an introduction before we get Maria in. So Maria is a registered dietitian, nutritionist with a Master of Science degree in Human Nutrition and Food Science. She is the creator and owner of Inspired Eating, which is an intuitive eating and health at every size practice. It helps people of all ages, genders, and sizes make peace with food and eat in a supportive and nourishing way. Maria works with clients from a non-diet and weight-neutral lens. Her consults focus heavily on intuitive eating strategies, behavior goals, and shifts in focus and support. Maria is also a professional mountain ultra trail runner. She runs for La Sportiva. Her athletic accomplishments include a North American mountain running championship, trail half marathon national champion, and member of 6 US mountain running teams competing throughout North America and Europe. Maria is also a coach. She coaches trail runners and ultra runners of all abilities and experience. She lives in Bellingham, Washington, United States.
Wow.
That's a lot of feathers in her cap. Let's get Maria in. Good morning.
Good morning. Good evening. Hi everyone. Hi Monica. Hi Miss.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Good. I know it's an early start for you this morning.
It is an early start, but it's a great way to start the day. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for getting up this early. What time do you usually get up on a Sunday? Yeah, today's Sunday.
On a Sunday, so I usually do my long run on a Saturday, and it's probably the earliest I get up during the week. So Sundays, I'm a morning person as it is, so I would probably get up not too much later, between 7:30 and 8. So this is just a little bump up. No big deal.
Thank you for making the time, and we're really excited to have you and for you to talk to us about nutrition and food. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Of course, Monica. She was baking some. What were you baking?
I'm making some chocolate chip cookies.
Nice.
Yes, we don't get a lot of vegan desserts around here, so we try to have something on hand for the weekend.
Yeah, that's super special. Great.
Yeah, so I was making that.
What's happening in your neck of the woods? How is the weather? Are you able to get out and run and train? Have things changed dramatically?
First of all, I want to send a lot of compassion and empathy your way. I know you guys are on a much stricter lockdown situation than we are, and I just want to, commend you and a tip of the hat to you guys for continuing to train every day from your home, literally from inside your home. That's super impressive and really inspiring. And so it's really inspiring to see that. And I want to acknowledge my privilege because I am not under such severe restrictions, and my life has not been quite as turned upside down as many others. I have been able to access trails whenever I want them, and I do not have kids, and so it's just my husband and I work from home anyway, and so our life is pretty status quo with the exception of limited social interaction. I'm not able to go back home and see my family, so I am definitely one of the lucky ones for sure.
Great. Is that just because you're in Washington, correct? And I know that that's one of the states that was hit initially quite hard.
Yeah.
And so you're in a very rural area, or?
No, I'm an hour and a half north of Seattle, and I'm actually 20 minutes from Canada. So I'm actually closer to Vancouver, Canada than I am Seattle. And the Washington governor has been really a really great, strong leader in kind of getting a grasp on this as quick as possible. And they've put some restrictions, more so in the Seattle area. That's where the main outbreak was. So here in Bellingham, things were much looser within the guidelines that we do have.
That's nice. That's nice for you that you've been able to continue your life almost as if nothing is really happening.
Super lucky.
Yeah, we have questions coming in already on protein and slow protein. But no, before we get to that, I was obviously reading more about you and your background. Intuitive eating, every size, non-diet, weight neutral. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your background? And is this is obviously not a conventional sports nutritionist sort of profile. It's very specialized. So yeah, if we could know.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you acknowledging that and asking that question. So intuitive eating is, well, first of all, when you think of a dietitian, what's the first thing you think of? The first 4 letters, right? Diet. We think enforced food rules, we think meal plans, something that's very regimented, something to follow. A lot of people think of dietitians as the food police. A lot of the times I'll be in the grocery store shopping, just minding my own business. And before the social distancing came into play, people that I would know in the grocery store would come by and be like, oh, don't look in my basket. I'd be judging them for what they're buying. And they'd immediately come up with some excuse of why they have a frozen pizza in their buggy. And I'm just like, no, it's okay. I have a frozen pizza too. This is fine. So I'm not the food police. Quite on the contrary, I do specialize in intuitive eating. And what intuitive eating is, it's a dynamic process that incorporates our mental health, our physical health, the food that we eat, so that it helps to facilitate normal eating behaviors. And what I mean by normal eating behaviors is that most of us, and especially with the audience we're talking to now, the Unived community, I think it's pretty safe to say that most of us are athletes or active people who are passionate about moving our bodies. And this population in particular is especially susceptible to eating disorders or disordered eating behavior. Because if you think about it, oftentimes athletes get very regimented meal plans, very prescriptive diets. And so what happens is that if one experiences that over years of their life, they lose trust in their own body's innate ability to make decisions that are best for themselves. And so intuitive eating is a there's 10 guidelines, if you will, to work through that encompass the physical health, mental health, and our relationship with food, so that regardless of if we are athletes or not, we know how to feed our bodies, because we are constantly changing. Something that we hear all the time as athletes are, we're got to feed the machine, we're machines, we got to do this, do this, do this. And we're not machines. We are human beings. We are living, breathing, dynamic. We are changing every day, every decade of our life. We have a different body that we're navigating the world in. And so our eating behaviors have to change with that. But oftentimes when we're stuck in a diet mentality, we're not able to be as fluid in those changes.
I think I would agree with that. I think a lot of us, especially with the athletes, we get so, oh, I can't eat that. No, I shouldn't be eating that. Let me avoid that. It's instead of allowing yourself to, I'm not saying that you should eat everything, but definitely, like you're saying, intuitively, your body's going to tell you what you need. And sometimes I think as athletes, we shy away from that, or we just think that, oh no, I'm eating the wrong way. And I think then we start doubting ourselves.
Right. Well, it's a restriction feedback. So when we do eat whatever forbidden food is off limits, or I call it the shit list. What are the foods on our shit list that we don't eat? When we do eat them, it starts a spiral of guilt and remorse and shame. And what happens is we double down on the restriction and be like, all right, back to work tomorrow, back on the wagon. I'm gonna, and it's this negative cycle of, oh, I overdid it, I gotta make up for it, and then it just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, I have a couple of things written down that I wanted to speak with you about maybe later in the chat. I think I've been suffering from an eating disorder. And now that I look at it, I've been looking at it over the last couple of years, and I've come to realize that for me, I think I lose more energy and I get more frustrated analyzing what I've eaten and how much I've eaten. And I feel that if I don't do that and I just eat it and let go of it, I could probably recover much better, because I'm not, stressing out about it. I'm not losing energy over it.
I would agree with that. I think he definitely thinks about this more than I do personally. I think I'm a little bit more of an intuitive eater. I don't get down on, oh yeah, I just ate a cookie. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have eaten that. I enjoyed it, and that was it.
Monica may eat one cookie and not worry about it. I may eat 4 and then just be like, I'm never going to eat a cookie again in my life.
Right. And so let's dissect this a little bit if we can. And first of all, Amit, thank you for sharing that with all of us. And again, sending lots of compassion your way, because that's something really challenging to work through, and for you to acknowledge that that is a challenge for you. I'm sure there's a lot of us out there that can relate to that. So thank you for being open about that. Something, and on your point of how much energy you're spending analyzing it. And so many of us out there do that. Think of how much time and energy doing the calculations and thinking, okay, I need to do this, or eating is, what's the word I'm looking for? It is conditional. Eating is based on, did I work out today? Did I not? And think of how much energy you're expending worrying and having anxiety over this, when that energy could be put forward towards training. Or like you said, you could recover much faster. And what I always tell people is, think of how much space in your brain gets freed up when you're not thinking about food 24/7. Because so much of us, when we place restrictions, we are so preoccupied with food that it does not leave much room for other things in our life. And so one thing that I first sit down with the people that I work with, I have a values-driven approach, which means, first of all, we sit down and we talk about, what are your values in life? Because a lot of the times, what we value in life is not in alignment with how we're eating. For example, if you value community and time with friends, especially now that's more apparent than ever. I always thought of myself as an introvert, but I'm ready to bust out of this joint. I'm ready for hugs and social interaction. But those values become apparent. And if you are eating in a way that is interfering with that value, for example, if you get invited to go out with friends, but it causes too much anxiety because you won't be able to control what you're eating, or it's going to impact your behaviors in a way that you feel is not part of your plan or whatever, that could lead to some, and I'm not just saying this, research has shown it leads to just poor mental health in the long road, because there's that dissonance there between your behavior and your values. And so that's something that I discuss with everybody. And then when Monica, you shared your approach, how you can have a cookie and not really think too much about it, it's whatever. And then Amit, you might have a different experience, and that might be because and disclaimer, I don't know your history or your, all of that stuff. But if you have in the past put a lot of arbitrary rules around what you can and cannot have, there could be a lot of emotion behind that cookie. And so, are you okay with me cussing on here? Is that okay? Okay. So sometimes when you eat one thing that's on your shit list, like I said before, it's called the fuck it effect. Oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna eat all the cookies. I had one cookie, I'm gonna eat them all. And so that mentality comes when we've spent so much energy on restriction that we've run out of energy to expend on that. And so it's like, oh, I don't care anymore. And then we might eat past the point of comfortable fullness. That sense of guilt, remorse, and shame comes into play. And then what happens is we double down on the restriction, and it's like, okay, I'm never eating cookies ever again, which isn't real life, right? Because eating cookies could be part of what a big value in your life. Like, you don't want to go to a birthday party and not take it, not eat cake because everyone else is doing it and it's fun. And I know these are like big concepts, and maybe it's the coffee talking, and I should reel it in a bit, but it's very nuanced, and it's very, this is an example of like, we get into, releasing that restriction and having trust in yourself, because when you give yourself permission to eat that cookie whenever you want, that intensity isn't there to eat all the cookies, because you know what? I can eat them tomorrow if I want. I can eat them the next day. Just because it's I don't have to wait till Saturday to eat a cookie or eat pizza. It's a Tuesday night. I can eat, and this is a true story. Last night, our sushi place opened for the first time in like 3 months, and I love sushi, and we were so excited, and we had to wait an hour and a half for it, and I was so hungry. And I was thinking, I don't want to be full for my sushi. I don't want it to ruin my meal. So I decided to eat dessert first. And it's like the best thing. So I had my chocolate bar, and I was sitting there, having a glass of wine with my chocolate while waiting on my food to come. And so life is too short to let that steal, worries about food to steal your joy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, and I think for me, I've always been a big eater. I've always eaten maybe as much as 2 or 3 people could eat. I'll go through 2 large pizzas myself and still be hungry.
Yeah.
But now I know so much about nutrition, or I know a little bit about nutrition, and I know a lot about sugar. And so I'm trying to avoid it because I know it's not good for me, but at the same time, I'm craving it because I'm burning so many calories. And it's easy. It's around. There's stuff around in the kitchen, and it's one of those things. It's food. You have control over it because you can choose not to eat it. But at the same time, sometimes you don't have control. And I guess it goes back to what you said. Don't try and control it, because if you don't feel like you're restricting yourself to a cookie every Saturday and you can eat it whenever you want, then you may not you may not want it that much anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. And something if I may nitpick a little bit about that, making the sweeping statement that sugar is bad. You know, we've read things about it, but I want to challenge that statement and think about context a little bit, because if you're running an ultra and you're, you know, if it's the decision between eating nothing and some sugar to prevent you from keeling over on the side of the trail, in that situation, sugar could save your life. And so thinking, you know, what is a Coke, you know, soda or whatever bad? Well, let's talk about it. Are you drinking Coke for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and not drinking water? Or is it displacing other healthful things that you could be eating? Or using a Coke to get you from point A to point B safely? And so I always challenge people to lose these sweeping statements of this food is good and this food is bad, because there's so much nuance there and the context matters so much. Like, I would argue that, yes, like my chocolate last night, it has sugar in it. I ate way more than what a serving is considered. However, especially during this time, I look forward to that chocolate every single day. Every single day, I look forward to that chocolate. That gives me joy. And if I said, nope, no more, my quality of life would decrease dramatically. And I know we're just talking about chocolate, but especially right now, my quality of life would decrease dramatically. And that is less healthy, for using those terms, than just eating the chocolate.
Yeah, I guess is it because it's comforting in difficult times?
Yeah, and we can even get into that. It's not only is it comforting, but it's delicious. You know, food is meant to taste good to us, and something that I talk a lot about and is the effect that diet culture has on us, and it might be kind of interesting to talk about how it is in India where you are versus where in the States, where diet culture is very prominent. It's everywhere we look, and diet culture basically tells us what we should look like, how we should eat, when we should eat, enforces food rules. You're not good enough. You can't trust yourself. So let me tell you what to do. That's diet culture. And so it might be interesting to see how diet culture plays a role in India. So that's something that I would definitely be curious to hear more about. But diet culture tells us that, you know, if we indulge in food, that's gluttony or that's shameful or we need to earn that right. And that's certainly not the case. Food is meant to be enjoyed, because, you know, how we wouldn't be here if we didn't like food. We would have been killed off a long time ago. And so it's a bit dramatic, but so in the context of emotional eating, if you think about it, food is very emotional, and something I get from people that I work with is, oh, I'm an emotional eater. We all are. If you think about when we were babies, what did we do to be comforted? Our mothers fed us, right? That was comforting to us. And I can eat a certain pasta dish and it reminds me of my grandfather who passed away when I was 7. That's really powerful. And my mom, I come from a big Italian family. Just food was a big part of my life growing up. And especially now, I haven't been able to see, my mom lives across the country and I haven't been able to see her since Christmas. And so when I want to think of my mom, if I'm cooking with garlic and my hands smell like garlic, it reminds me of my mother. And that is a really special emotional connection. And so often with emotional eating, diet culture has tied that so much to being negative. And it's certainly not negative, because again, it's about context. If you're looking to food to cope during this challenging time that's so hard and weird and there's so much uncertainty, that's way better than looking to drugs or alcohol, right? And thinking about food, you know, it's totally fine if you want to use food to cope. The concern is there when that's the only tool in your toolbox. And so if you have no other coping mechanisms to turn to, and you use food to cope without interpretation of that, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah, Yeah, it's interesting because you said you come from an Italian family, and I know that there's variety of food. There's a lot of flavors, a lot of herbs, a lot of seasoning. Monica's Mexican, I'm Indian, so our cultures are very rich, of course, in food. Lots of spices, lots of dishes. Bombay is full of street food. Street food is a culture here. You walk down the streets and there's carts and carts of fried stuff and rice patties and wraps and
Sandwiches.
Uh, anything you can think of. So when as an athlete in India, since you said diet culture in India, yeah, we've grown up with just such a variety of food, a lot of carbs, a lot of rice, a lot of wheat, naan with every meal.
Yeah.
And then when you grow up and you either, you look at athletes from the West, or you go follow a program and they talk about, okay, eat so much protein, eat lean meats. We're vegan, we don't eat meat, but just for people in general, eat lean meats, give up rice, give up carbohydrate. It goes against everything that we've known.
Yes.
So you're like, should I make a trade-off? Should I not?
Right.
But this is what I've grown up with. This is what they're telling me. I don't like that food, but I want to look like that, or I want to run that fast.
Absolutely. That is such a great point. That cultural piece is so huge. And that's where it goes back to your values. And that's why it's so important to identify what is important to you. My joke is I'm too Italian to be gluten-free. It's not going to happen. It's not. Like, I would be so sad. Like, and the good thing that is, I don't need to be. I have a body that can digest and absorb, and that's fine. So there's no reason to put that restriction. And again, that's something that you have to ask yourself is, okay, they're saying that if I do this, I'm going to be a better athlete. But at what cost? At what cost? What is the trade-off there? Is my mental health going to suffer? Is my relationship going to suffer? Because there's going to be this dissonance there between what our cultural norms are versus what my athletic pursuits are. But you also have to look at like even other cultures, like look at the Kenyans and Ethiopians who have a predominantly carbohydrate-based diet. I mean, what's the logic there? And so there's, again, it goes back to that nuance and that context.
Yeah, but you mentioned the Kenyans. That's their traditional diet. That's what that's what they've grown up with, and they haven't changed it.
We're trying to imitate them instead. We're trying to see, where can I get what is it, ugali?
Yeah.
We're trying to incorporate all these other foods that are not native to our actual diets or how we grew up, and because that's what we think that we're supposed to eat and to get faster or better.
So for us, mangoes just came in a season a week ago.
Yeah.
It's mango season, and we love mango.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who will not eat mango because they think they're going to get fat. We just went out this morning and picked up 5 kilos. And I think that'll be done in maybe a day or two.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course. So
and honestly, I could spend hours and hours talking about this. You just hit on like 5 buzzwords that made my brain go, wow, we got to talk about this. But so yeah, I don't even know where to start with that. So first of all, mangoes are delicious. And again, that taking that out of your diet just by saying that mangoes will make me fat. First of all, there's a lot wrong with that statement. That is not a fact. There's no truth to that. That is diet culture spreading that message. The second thing that's wrong with that statement is it's using fat in a derogatory term. Fat is a body size. There are many people out there who your weight does not indicate health. There are many, many factors that indicate health. And so using fat as a derogatory term or as an insult is so hurtful for people who live in bigger bodies. And so that's one message that I always try to make people who live in smaller bodies aware of, especially during this time of quarantine where we might not be able to do as much movement as much as we were a normal life, and we might have access to more foods because we're in containment. People are saying, oh, I'm going to gain weight, or I'm going to get fat. Think of somebody who lives in a bigger body and how that would feel to them, or what that means to them. And basically what you're saying without maybe realizing it is, I don't want to gain weight because if I am fat, I'm going to be less valued. I'm not going to be taken seriously. I'm going to be deemed as unhealthy, and the list goes on and on. There's a lot of fat phobia out there and shame that comes along with that. And so that is actually a concept within the Health at Every Size, which is an approach of how I consult with people. I don't even ask people their weight, because it doesn't matter what your weight is. You can have health at every size, because weight is one indicator of health amongst many. I'd argue that you could eat quote unquote perfect, but if you're getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep, if your stress level is through the roof, if you aren't managing your relationships in a healthful way, it doesn't matter what you eat, your health will not be what you deem as good.
Optimal. Yeah.
I think that's a great approach. How you're not just looking at what like you said initially when you started your talk, that we think about dietitian as diet, and that's all we focus on, and that's what we think health is. But in reality, it's more of a holistic approach where you're looking at all aspects of your life to determine whether or not you're a healthy individual.
Absolutely.
Health is sleep. Health is food. Health is exercise. Health is mangoes.
Absolutely. It's 100% mangoes. Yes. Hashtag health is mangoes.
Wow.
Yeah. I think those are some. I totally agree with what you said in respects to the way that we view the word fat or skinny and all these terms that society we have put upon ourselves to determine the way that we feel or the way that we think we should look.
Yeah, and it goes the other way too. Like somebody who lives in a smaller body, sometimes we look at them and we think, oh, they're healthy, they're small, or they're skinny, but they could have an eating disorder. And what we're doing is we're encouraging that behavior. And so there's nothing good about that situation. And so we really have to be mindful of the words that we use and the impact that they might have on somebody.
Yeah, and I think, these words are used because of the conditioning, I guess. We live in a society, we're conditioned to think in a certain way. But then when you speak with, I guess when someone speaks with someone like you, who has a focus on intuitive eating and dealing with people of every size, health is at every size, you sort of open your mind and you start getting deconditioned, and you start
unlearning. There's a lot of unlearning to do.
Yeah, you start unlearning, and you start seeing life and seeing people and seeing health in different shapes and sizes, and start appreciating it. So
yeah. So how do you deal, or how do you, when you have a client who is, say, an ultra runner or a trail runner, who whose goals are, I want to improve my speed, and when they come to you, they're probably thinking, I want a meal plan, like this is tell me what I need to eat. How do you approach that?
First of all, I say I don't do meal plans, and either they go, okay, bye, or oh, well, why not? So and I'm teasing, but I have lost a lot of people because they're like, oh, well, I just want you to tell me what to do. And I won't tell you what to do because I'm not the expert of your body. And that's the first thing I tell people. Like if somebody calls me, and like I do free discovery calls just to see, so that I can tell people my approach, because they think I'm going to give them a meal plan or tell them what to do. And so when I tell them that, if I were to talk to you for 15 minutes and be like, I know exactly what you need. I know what you need to eat to be better, faster, stronger, and life is good, and you're gonna live forever. If somebody tells you that, I always tell people to run away, the other direction as fast as you can, because only you live in your body. Only you have your likes, your dislikes, your stress level, your partner, your spouse, your kids. Only you have that experience. And so I always tell people, you are the expert and I'm here as a guide to help you figure out what's best for you. Because again, it goes back to us being told that what we're supposed to do, we're reaching for this arbitrary ideal that is not truly what is important to us. It's just what we're supposed to do. So, so to get back to your question, which was when people ask about, can you repeat your question, Monica? I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, it's, so if I'm a trail runner and I come to you and ask you, can you tell me what I need to eat to become better? So I want a meal plan, basically.
Right. Okay. So the first thing is, after we get through all kind of the baseline stuff, what I find is that with these people and this particular group of people, they're really motivated. As you guys know, we're type A, most of us, and I know there are exceptions to the rule, I acknowledge that, but most of us are type A, work hard. What can I do to be bigger, better, faster, stronger? And so sometimes our scope becomes so zoomed in on, okay, how many grams of carbohydrates do I need a day? How many grams of protein? It becomes so hyper-focused on all these little not arbitrary, but just very specific guidelines that what I liken it to is they're worried about icing the cake before their cake is even baked. So it doesn't matter what kind of icing you put on the cake. If your cake is like falling over, or if it's just not constructed, if it's constructed poorly, the icing's just going to slide off. Like, it's not going to make a difference. And so what I first make sure of is, how is your foundation? Are you eating in a consistent and reliable way, not just during your runs or before and after, but all the way around? It's so much about, I don't care what you do in a day. I don't even care what you eat in a week, but it's over years of time. What is your baseline? How do you take care of yourself day after day after day? It's just like training. You don't do one workout and go, I'm ready to PR, I'm ready to, run up this mountain. It's weeks, it's months, it's years of putting in consistent work. And the same thing is with your diet, with your relationship to food. And it certainly is a relationship. You don't work on, Monica and Amit, you guys don't, like, when you first met, you weren't like, okay, we've talked for like a month or two. That's good. We're good. Our relationship's good. We don't need to talk things out. We're good. Like, if you did that, like, there's no way that things would last. You have to constantly work on it and constantly nurture it and tweak things and discuss things. So I think the same approach can be said with food and with training.
Yeah, it is an ever evolving relationship with food.
Yeah. I think we also go through our phases where we're eating more of certain things, and then we switch to other things. So the evolution of changing it up, and
it's very personal. If I look at two of us, I can eat anything.
Yeah. I
will not gain weight. I will burn through it in maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, and I need another meal. Monica may eat 1/3 of that and be okay till dinner. So you cannot possibly speak with us on the phone and say, this is your meal plan and this is your meal plan. It's just not going to work. But coming to food and putting everything in context of what many of us are facing today in a lockdown, how does someone who may, I guess, have a weakness when it comes to food, how does someone like that deal with being so close to their kitchen and not being able to leave the house and staring at the refrigerator all day, every day for, I don't know, a month, 2 months?
however long, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are struggling with that right now. And the one thing that I want to encourage people to think about is, are you eating enough? And this sense of enough, and it could be enough in the sense of, are you eating enough quantity and are you eating enough to satisfy you? Because chances are, if you have a preoccupation with food, you are not satisfied or you are not getting enough. And so what happens, especially when we're at home, we might have access to the time it takes to, okay, I'm going to have a nice salad for lunch. And so we make a nice salad and we're, feeling good about it. And so we eat that salad. But then, I mean, how many times do we get done with a meal and we're like, oh man, I could really use something sweet right now. I just don't feel. And then we keep going to the refrigerator and waiting, like looking to see what is it that I want. And then we can't stop thinking about it. And then like hours pass and we're still like, so making sure that like, that's a sign that that salad was not enough. Something needs to accompany that salad, whether it's a protein source, a big hunk of crusty bread, something fatty to make it with more sustenance. Making sure that you're getting enough and making sure that you're enjoying your food so that you're satisfied. And I think this concept of enoughness is missing in a lot of people's approach to food. They eat what they think they should be eating without asking, wait a minute, what do I want to be eating? What's going to be satisfying right now for this meal? Because you're constantly changing. Every day is different. So right now, what do I want? So that's one way of approaching it. The second thing is feeding yourself regularly and reliably. Because again, if we are getting really having anxiety about being locked down or making our food intake conditional on our movement, we might be like, oh, I didn't move my body today. I didn't run today. So therefore, I don't need to eat. That's going to backfire because your body is super smart, much smarter than you. I don't care what you say. Biology is awesome. And so later on, your body's going to be like, hey, we're going to let you know how hungry I am. So it's making sure that your food choices are not dependent on how much you moved your body, making sure you do not skip meals, eat in a regular, reliable way. Again, so you don't find yourself to the point of just starving, that you don't care what decisions you make, and it's kind of a free-for-all, and it's eating in this chaotic, stressful way. And the third tip I have in that situation is to, especially if you're working from home, is to don't work while you're eating. And this concept ties back to when you had Sandy on, I believe last Sunday, with the concept of mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the it's underneath the principle of intuitive eating and just being present. And think about it, if you fix your lunch and then sit in front of your desktop and you're working and you're eating at the same time, you're going to get done and not even remember that you ate. So you're getting no satisfaction from that meal. So even though you ate, you weren't paying attention to it. So when you're done with work, oh man, I need to relax. I could really use something tasty and satisfying. So even though you may not be hungry, you want that satisfaction factor. You want the pleasure that you get from eating. And so taking a moment to, just eat when you are eating instead of being distracted, and making that moment just for eating instead of working. And not only will that allow you to be more satisfied and get more enjoyment out of your meal, but it also gives you a reprieve from work, and it can make you more make you better for work the rest of the day.
I think that has happened to me before, where I've been eating at my desk and then suddenly I'm like, okay, what did I just eat? Because I was just busy doing something and eating, but I wasn't mindful of what I was eating.
What did I eat? How much did I eat? Did I eat enough? Yeah. No, I didn't. I should get something more. Yeah.
I I had a question. You touched upon the fact that if you don't get enough to eat, that you're craving something additional afterwards, like sugar, for example. I think a lot of us say, "Oh, I want dessert after every meal, or especially dinner." Mm-hmm. Is that because we haven't eaten enough, or is there a relationship of why we tend to get sugar cravings? I think there is also a question.
Absolutely, and there's a ton of different answers that I could give for that, because again, it depends on the context of what have you done that day. Did you eat enough for breakfast and lunch? Oftentimes I find that people eat so little for breakfast, or they eat so little for lunch, and also that's during our work day, and so it's easy to restrict and just eat this, and then when you get home, or in normal situations, when you get home and you have time to relax and to think about, okay, what do I want to eat? How do I feel? Oh man, I'm starving. And then they think, oh, I have no willpower, I can't control myself, I can't stop eating at night, which is not true. Your body's just hungry. You have not fed it properly the whole rest of the day. So that might manifest in being overly hungry, or taking more food to satisfy your needs in the evening, which again is nobody's fault. It's just your body saying, hey, I didn't eat enough. Also, we want what we can't have. That's a concept in psychology. This idea of scarcity. Anytime we put restrictions on ourselves, if I were here to if I showed up on your show and said, nobody eats sugar, everyone, that's all anyone's going to think about. Like, everyone's going to go and turn off this show and go run to the kitchen, because we want what we can't have. It's this fear of this scarcity mindset, or this deprivation mindset. So it's really interesting. And again, it's taking a part of what, and it could also be that at night people are more anxious. How many of us try to sleep at night and we can't? And so it could be a form of comfort in a time of intense anxiety. So there's many reasons that. And one thing that I do want to talk about, and just because you guys keep bringing up this concept of sugar, which is a carbohydrate, and just understanding that again, being careful of using terms that envelope so many types of foods. For example, fiber is a carbohydrate, and fiber is so important. And so when we say, carbohydrates are bad or should be limited, that also includes fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and all these really health promoting foods. And so again, we need to be careful of context and making sure that we're not making saying statements like good or bad. And so that's just a side rant.
There was a question. They wanted your thoughts on a sugar-free diet.
And I'm just for a blanketed answer, I'm a non-diet dietitian. So I am not, diets don't work. They're not sustainable. I will not be, I always say I'm a nutrition agnostic. There's not one way of eating that I'm going to promote. I'm not going to, again, it's that restriction. Are you really going to not eat sugar for the rest of your life? Are you serious? I mean, think about it. Are you really not? Are you going to go to a birthday party, or are you going to go to some kind of celebration? And are you going to feel good about not being part of the festivities? How's that going to make you feel? Are you going to feel fully alive and participating? It's deep stuff. And a lot of when I tell people that, they realize they come back to me and they're like, this is a lot of thinking. Because, people want to be told what to do. And then they're like, oh man, this is, and a lot of times it's very emotional. And my consults end with people crying because they have to think about it. It just becomes a very emotional experience, because so much of how we behave and act and our thoughts and beliefs are tied up with food. And when we confront that and really question, instead of just taking what we're told at face value and really questioning things, it makes you very vulnerable, and you understand what's important to you and what's not. So to answer this question, I'm not diets, no.
But just to answer you on sugar cravings at night, there's a lot of studies that are coming out that especially for athletes, if we have intense sugar cravings, especially at night, it could be a sign that we're low in magnesium. There is a very direct relationship between low magnesium and sugar cravings, and I guess it's amplified a lot more in athletes because we sweat a lot, and we do need magnesium. So maybe that's something to for runners and athletes to look into.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few questions coming in, so let me try and get to some of them. Ranjendra wants to know your view on slow versus fast reactive protein intake.
Oh man. Again, in what context?
Yeah.
Like what are we talking about here? And my question again goes, it matters again if we're really being nitpicky and picking apart, like, okay, what part of the day are we talking about? Are we talking about right after a run? Are we talking before? But again, if you're eating adequately and enough all day, every day, those questions of what kind of proteins becomes less important because you're getting a variety, because you're getting enough that you don't have to worry, okay, what kind of protein am I eating? But asking yourself, hey, am I getting different kinds? Am I tired of eating chicken? Let's switch things up and go more lentils. Let's do more beans. Having that variety get you not so hyper-focused on one type of food. And so the more variety, and again, the more consistently you're eating, those types of questions of what kind of protein, be it slow or fast or whatever, and I would need to know more about the context of his question, but that stuff is, you really start splitting hairs when you're looking at that. So again, that's the icing on the cake. And so in that situation, I'd want to look at the cake first, making sure that that's a nice, sturdy, good cake, and then we'll dive into the icing.
Shivangi is here. Hey, Shivangi. She says, I've been have these episodes of eating desserts and junk food these days. Is it to do with emotional stress?
Yeah.
Or is it just an excuse to enjoy treats? Yeah, I guess you would also need to know, in what context is she eating that?
Yeah, and I see the end of that, and the important thing about that is it says without any guilt, right? Mm-hmm. And eating should not come with a side of guilt, right? When nobody wants that, like that doesn't feel good, and that comes with that guilt is a side effect of referring to foods as good or bad. And so again, if we neutralize how we feel about food, like there's no good food out there. There's no morality tied to food. Eating a good food doesn't make me a good person. Just because I eat kale and you're eating, I don't know, a cheeseburger, I'm not better than you, right? And likewise, just because you eat a bad food or food that's on your shit list, that doesn't make you a bad person. There's no morality tied with food. And so something that I work with people on is called food neutrality, taking away that heightened sense of that hierarchy with foods. It's just food, and it's going to be changing. One meal doesn't make or break you. Just like if you eat a head of broccoli, that doesn't make you healthy. It could make you unhealthy because you could eat too much broccoli and get gas and cramping and bloating and be on the side of the trail during your run. There's nothing healthy about that, right? So it's about context. So again, it's taking in that specific context and just know that there's no guilt. There's no guilt needed. There's enough in this world to feel bad about. Food does not have to be one of them. So just eat your food, enjoy it, and move on. Use your brain space for things that build you up, not break you down.
Very well said. Yeah. Vijayan is here. So Vijayan is he's a trail runner. He runs long distances, 100 Ks, 100 miles. He says what does he say? It's a long question. Okay, so it seems like he has a sweet tooth. He's been trying to reduce his sugar intake, but then he has days when he just goes berserk and eats all the sugar he wants. Yeah, I don't see a question.
Yeah. It's an example of a binge restrict cycle.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, and you know, the term binge is, I'm using it loosely, but we restrict, and that restriction, we want what we can't have. It takes, as we talked about earlier on in the show, it takes a lot of energy to restrict. It takes a lot of energy not to eat when all we can think about is food. And so especially during stressful times or when we're tired from training, that's going to take up the energy we need to put forth a restriction. So it's going to be like, oh, it's that fuck it effect, right? Fuck it, I'm too tired, I'm going to eat all this. And then you eat, you know, in an uncontrollable way. And then you just go back to, okay, I'm back on it. I'm going to start restricting again. And so, so that's and thank you for sharing that example, because it's very common. We think we're being, you know, the best athletes we can be by eating quote unquote clean, which is another, you know, there's some fraught with that, using that term too. But, you know, it's what's realistic. You know, is this going to be like, wouldn't you be a much happier, well-balanced athlete if you incorporated food that bring you joy and that you enjoy, especially if you really enjoy sweets? I might say that would make your training better, because you're doing something that you enjoy, and your body can use that. It's not like sugar is the devil, or it's going to derail your training in any way. Our bodies are smart. We are robust. We can use your body breaks it down for fuel. We can put this stuff to use. It's not for nothing. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's not like you eat this food and your body can't do anything productive with it. That's not the case.
Yeah, but I know exactly what he's going through, because I go through the same thing. There's weeks when I'll eat maybe 4 or 5 tubs of ice cream a week just by myself, and then there's weeks when I just won't touch it. And it is restrict. It is some form of bulimia, I guess. I feel guilty after eating it. I'll tell Monica, oh, I just ate a tub myself. I'm gonna put on some weight, or why did I do that? Why did I do that? I should have just made a protein drink. But you have to, I guess, work on it. I'm working on it, and eat in moderation. Eat a little bit, don't eat too much. I don't know.
I think limit the restriction and be more free in terms of, I think what Maria's been talking about is just being intuitive and being in the moment of, okay, right now my body is craving this. But if you eat a little bit, like a bowl today, then you eat a bowl tomorrow, and then the next day, then, the tub is not going to be eaten in one day. It's going to be spread out, and that guilt maybe will not be there as much.
And as you can see, there's a lot to unpack here, and there's, like I said, there's a lot to unlearn. And so when I work with people, it's not a one and done conversation. Like we all can talk for hours about these concepts. And so I have people who have been working with me for 3 to 6 months on these concepts and challenging these ideas. And I had one person who, he made his list of shitless foods, and I challenged him to go out and buy it and have it in the house and be exposed to it and try and it's a form of exposure therapy and learning to trust yourself and just acknowledging that it's not easy. It's not easy. And so reach out if you need help, not necessarily to me, but just to any other professional who has experience in this or who can help guide you, anybody who's listening who is struggling with this, because it's not easy. It's challenging, and it's hard, and it's stressful, and it takes up a lot of your energy. And so I send compassion to anyone's way who is experiencing this, and just know that it's not easy. And it's easy for me to say it, but to actually do it, it takes time. Just like running, you have your good days, you have your bad days, and it's over time, the difference that it makes. It's not just a one and done sort of situation.
Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah, one last question from Sri Guru. Thoughts about culture of fermented and probiotic food is getting a lot of popularity here. Yeah,
fermented food and what The fascinating thing about this subject is our gut health and the effect that our gut has on our overall health. And I think that research has barely scratched the surface on the effect that they call it the gut brain. We have our brain that dictates everything, but they're saying that our gut brain is just as decisive in how our body reacts to the world, so to speak. And so the thing about fermented foods and probiotics and prebiotics, which is basically how varied is our gut bacteria, our microflora, if you will, and people who have a more varied diet, so people who eat a variety of things and not just a certain strict structure of foods, have a more varied gut bacteria. And the research is saying that the more varied your gut bacteria is, the the better your health indicators are in the lab, like your lab numbers are.
Yeah, drink your kombucha every day and ferment some cabbage at home
and just have a varied diet. Don't get stuck on. I think when I think of the same food every day, is I see these Instagram posts of people doing like prepping their meals, and it's the same meals are throughout the week. It's like I'm eating the same thing every day for 5 days a week, and I just look at that and I'm like, I would get so bored of that.
Yeah.
There's just no way that I would be able to sustain that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I get people who don't have a lot of time. They have to meal prep, so you cook a lot on Sunday and then you pack a couple of boxes up and you're okay till Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, it's not black and white. It's context, right?
Yeah.
What's the alternative? Oh, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be at lunch. It's gonna be lunchtime, and I don't know what I'm gonna eat, so I'm just gonna reach for the, whatever's closest. But if it's something like I gotta pack my lunch, I've got to eat this, and there's rules behind that, that changes the impact of that behavior.
Well, it's been an hour. We have a couple of good quick fire round questions for you.
Yay!
Ready? Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Ready.
What's your favorite midnight snack?
Ooh. Because I have midnight snacks all the time. I probably eat more bananas than anybody on the planet. I cannot keep them in the house, but my favorite thing to eat in the middle of the night is probably yogurt with oats or granola with a banana and crunchy peanut butter. Has to be crunchy.
Yeah,
Nice.
we do the creamy peanut butter.
Yeah, we do the creamy, but
Your team creamy?
Yeah.
It's okay. We can still be friends.
Yeah. I save the crunchiness for the granola. I think that does a good job. So, yeah. Okay. Post run, smoothie with a protein bar or pancakes with coffee?
Oh. Pancakes with coffee.
Pancakes with coffee. Yeah, I think.
That's like a Sunday.
That sounds like
treat,
that's an everyday. That sounds like an everyday breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite training day trail? I know you have a lot of trails by where you live. So
I like our local trail system is on Chuckanut Mountain, and for people who I think when Hayden was on, he talked about running the Chuckanut 50K.
Yep.
That's my backyard.
Wow. Okay.
That's where I do my long runs and most of my workouts, and so that's my preferred place to train.
Wow. How far is that from your place?
Like 15-minute drive.
Wow.
That's nice.
Yeah, super nice. Yeah, you guys will have to visit.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to.
What's your favorite strength training exercise?
Ooh. Let's see. My favorite. Let's start with what I'm good at. I'm good at pull-ups. I can do pull-ups until the cows come home. But my favorite would be something that I'm not as good at because I enjoy the challenge of it. But I like before the lockdown happened, I was going to the gym a couple times a week, and I was learning how to do cleans. And my form is awful. It's terrible. It's just, I eat humble pie every time I go into the gym. But it's really fun. It's really fun learning a new skill. And so I like doing anything like a clean and push press or something that's completely foreign to running, just because it's different.
Yeah, you got to be a little careful with those as well. If if the weight is too much, or if it's
yes. I know nothing about it. I would never do that alone. So be under guidance.
Yeah. And then what's your dream destination race? So not a race in the US, but a destination race.
Oh gosh, that's a huge question. Oh man, probably somewhere outside of Europe, because I've been very fortunate to race in several places around Europe, and so I would love to come to India. Let's see, I would love to go to Patagonia. Oh, the list is. I'm not picky. I'm not picky.
When is the airport opening? Come on.
I know. I can be packed in an hour.
Let's travel. Yeah. I think all of us are waiting. I hope that travel opens up. I know for us, we want to come out to the US. We usually come at least once a year. We try and make it there twice a year, but we've been coming once a year for the last 10 years, pretty much.
Yeah. My family lives I grew up in Oregon, so very close.
Oh my gosh, Monica! Wow, what part of Oregon?
So I grew up in Eastern Oregon, Ontario, Oregon. It's a very, very small town.
Okay.
It's right on the border of Oregon and Washington.
Okay.
So I think we consider ourselves more Idahoans because we're like 10 minutes to drive to Idaho, basically.
Oregon and Idaho.
Yeah. And then I went to Willamette University, which is in Western Oregon. So I got to experience the other side of Oregon, which is very different in landscape.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, been to Seattle a few times, spent some time in Olympia. I worked there for a summer internship.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I had a coworker who was from Bellingham, so that name was familiar, but I've never been there.
Awesome. It's a small world.
Yes, definitely.
We drove from school to Seattle.
Yep.
For a day, 2 days, to the Microsoft campus.
Okay.
And the campus, and then I have family in Seattle. I have family in LA, in San Francisco. So we
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're usually there once a year. So November, December is when we go, and we were going to go this December. I don't think that'll happen now, but
let's see.
We'll
Let's see what the scenario is like after the next few months, and then we'll Everything is just so uncertain. We just don't know what's going to happen, and
it's hard to make plans.
But I was watching the news this morning. I think a couple of states in the US are beginning to open up. So they were saying that restaurants may be open, and takeaways is definitely open. A couple of gyms. Yeah. What else? Small businesses. But I think that's only in a few states, right? Yeah,
that is correct. Yes, I know Georgia, Idaho, Wisconsin. I think Washington will be a much slower progression.
Yeah, that's how it is here. Bombay is extended to the 17th, so the lockdown is extended, and it probably will get extended into June. But then there's a couple other states that are opening up, so it's pretty much just taking every day as it comes. Thankfully, we're able to go out, get groceries, get a little bit of sun, and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And it's nice to have each other.
Yeah.
At least I think.
Yeah, no, it's nice. We adopted a stray cat 2 months before the lockdown. So before
Wait, this is the cat on Instagram?
Yes.
I'm so glad you brought this cat up, because if I got off this call and didn't bring up the cat, I would have been really upset with myself. I love this cat. I love this cat so much. And the cat and turtle combination, I love that so much. Tell me about the cat.
Someone brought him to us. Someone brought him to the office. I think 3 months ago.
Yeah, something like
He
that.
was like that big and barely breathing. So we took him in and we fed him. And then fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lockdown. Like, we can't leave him at work. So because until then we would leave him at the office, and he'd stay there by himself at night, and then we'd go every day in the morning and feed him and all of that. But then we brought him home, and he's somewhere. He's sleeping somewhere.
Oh man,
going here, and we have a toy.
He's so cute.
Yeah,
I just love it when he bats the turtle's head, and the turtle doesn't even care. Like, he's just like, nah. I'm into this.
I think he thinks he's playing with them, and I feel like he thinks he's gonna play back, and but
the turtle doesn't care. He's like, whatever, do your backflips and come run on me. I don't care.
Well, those videos bring me a lot of joy, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching that bit of nonsense that goes on in the house. But it's been awesome. Thank you so much for waking up really early and speaking with us on our relationship with food. For a lot of us, for me especially, it's been challenging. There's phases that are great, and then there's phases where I'll eat, and then feel guilty. But I think I've learned a little bit today, for sure. And I think for Monica as well.
I think it's definitely. The conversation just can go on and on and on, because I think you brought up so many points that we do not consider when we think about food. I think so many times we just think food, we just have to eat it and then be done with it. Like, it's more than just that, and how it affects our entire, our life entirely. So, I think it's opened up my eyes to a lot of other things that I hadn't thought about. And hopefully those who tuned in and who get a chance to listen to you will get a better new ideas or new thoughts about their relationship with food.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway also is, when you say in what context, because everyone has the same questions. Everyone says, oh, should I eat this much, or should I avoid sugar? And the first thing is, in what context? What are you going through? And it's not one conversation. It's a journey, and context may change every day, and situation may change. Externalities may change. You may suddenly find yourself in a lockdown, and that's very different. We should all ask the question, in what context, and we should all
give self-compassion and a lot of grace and a lot of understanding, and less judgment. And I always encourage people to, rather than when you get these thoughts, or when you have these insecurities or negative feelings, rather than looking upon your actions or your thoughts with judgment, look about it with curiosity. Why am I feeling this way? Who's telling me I should feel this way? What can I do to feel better, or to prevent this feeling from happening in the future? And so, again, it's not easy. Reach out for help if you need it. Thank you so much for letting me share something that I'm really passionate about with you guys today. And we didn't even talk about running. I always say running is my #1 passion, but food is a very close second. So maybe another time we'll talk about my #1 passion.
We have to bring you back on a topic on running. Yes. But if people want to get in touch with you, whether it's for running, because I know you coach as well, so whether it's for a training plan or whether it's for food, what's the best way for them to sort of do that?
I'm very easy to get hold of. People can reach me on my website, which is just Maria Dalzot, which is my full name, RD, which is for registereddietitian.com. And from there, there's a contact page, my email, also all social links like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that. I'm super easy to get hold of if anyone has any follow-up questions or any thoughts or messages they want to send my way. I do my very best to get back to everybody in a timely way.
That's awesome. And I think you mentioned you do a discovery call as well.
I do. I offer rather, because a lot of people are unsure, they're not sure what to expect. So rather than jumping right into paying for an hour consult, I offer the opportunity to just give me a call and we talk for free. And you can schedule that just by going to the schedule tab of my website, and it just says free discovery call, and you just pick a time and a day. And if for some reason, or not for some reason, but if somebody who say is in India and the time difference is way wonky and it just doesn't work out with the times that I have, just send me an email and we'll make it work. We'll figure out a time that's conducive to both of us.
That's so amazing. I don't know of a lot of people who offer free discovery calls. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's as we talked about, this is a really vulnerable subject. And so a lot of the times people don't seek help because they're not sure what to expect, or they think they're going to be judged, or they think they're going to be told what to do, or they're going to feel shameful for their behaviors. And so I think it's really important for people to know, hey, I'm not here. I'm not the food police. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not the expert of you. Here's what I do. And, for me to listen to what your needs are, and also to be like, hey, I don't think I'm the best person for you. I think you'd be better off going to so-and-so or doing this. So it's just a good opportunity to just ease people's worries, and it's the best option for everybody, I feel.
Yeah. So anyone who's watching, if you have questions or if you have doubts, take her up on this. There is a free discovery call. Schedule a time if you're in India or anyone else in the world and the time doesn't work. Send her an email, and I'm sure she'll happily, work with you on that. You may need to send her some coffee, but Any other last words from you, Maria?
Oh, no, just thank you. This was such an honor, and I truly appreciate it. And I'm happy to be a resource for anybody who needs it. And I just really appreciate you reaching out and your friendship. And hopefully one day we can meet in person and run some trails together. I would really like that.
Yeah,
we'll definitely take that up.
Yeah. I think both of us are a little envious of your backyard.
Yeah.
We see the phenomenal pictures and beautiful trails. So maybe next trip we'll take you up on that.
That would be awesome. That would be so good.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good rest of the day, rest of your Sunday, and a good week ahead. And everyone else, good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you are. Have a great day and great week ahead. Remember to be home, be safe, wash your hands, and
be positive.
Be positive. Don't stress out too much about food. Enjoy it. Don't watch the telly while you're eating. Don't watch
watch the news.
Don't Instagram feed while you're eating.
Get indigestion.
Yeah. And it's mango season, so if you're in India, pick it up, get all the mangoes you can. And we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.